Okay, today we're recreating a dish from the postcard challenge. The dish we're recreating is the Italian dish made by Keymar. The dish is called Fileja alla Nduja. Sorry to every Italian out there because I absolutely murdered that name. We'll write it up on the screen. Okay, to start this recipe, we need to make the pasta first because that has to rest. So I've already got my flour measured out in my food processor. Now I'm just going to add about 125 mils of water to start with. That's close enough. Now I'm just going to pulse this until it comes together, and the final texture is going to be like little pebbles. So we'll just pulse this together and then we'll add more water if we need to. So we'll check that. I need to add a little bit more water. Just add a little bit at a time and we'll mix it together until we get the right consistency. So it still feels a little dry, but when I pick it up with my hands, it completely holds together. So we'll get this turned out on the board and we'll finish off kneading it by hand. Alrighty, got my dough turned out onto the board. Now I'm just going to start bringing it together. Now I still have a little bit of water left off to the side if it needed. But we're just going to start kneading this, bringing it together. And also it's handy to have a little bench scraper to the side there, just to keep everything in. So we're just going to keep going with this, bringing it together and kneading it until it comes a nice smooth dough. So once I got it to that point, we'll come back. So if you think you need to add a little bit of water to this, the best way to do it is just get a jug and just pour a little bit in your hands. Just add a little bit at a time. Just rub your hands together and just keep on kneading like that. And that'll add as much water as you need. So if you think you need it, just go ahead and do that and keep on kneading the dough. As you can see, I've got a nice smooth ball here, and when you push it, it lightly springs back. So and it's this point here, and some cling film, and we're just going to let that rest for about 30 minutes. There's also another thing I want to note here. I use just over 130 mils total of water for 300 grams of flour. Now that's going to vary depending on what brand of flour and where in the world you actually get your flour, as they're all different. So just keep that in mind. So the good starting point is 120 mils in the food processor to bring it together, then tip it out on the board and just start bringing it together and add just enough water as you need to get to the nice smooth dough, and when you push it lightly, it springs back. My dough's been resting for about half an hour just on the bench here. Now I'm just going to unwrap it. I'm going to cut it into quarters. So we'll just cut it like that. Alright, we'll rip this hunk off, then we'll wrap this stuff up and we'll set that aside for now. Considering this is the first time I've made this type of pasta, this is the last piece of dough because I wanted to go through and just make sure I had my little technique down before I filmed it properly. So you just want to go ahead, and this is just a quarter piece of the dough. And I like to roll it out into a thick log, and I'll cut that piece in half. Then just in my hands, roll it out a little bit more, and then roll this into an even thinner piece. So this piece, I like to get about the width of my board, which it doesn't really matter. And I'll cut that piece in half. And then I'll go ahead and I'll roll this into my final width, which is about 1/2 centimetre in width, in diameter I should say. So if you need to, I just pick it up a little bit if the edges are a little bit fat. And then just go ahead and get an equal width the whole way across. And then I've kind of worked out that the width of my board is about the length I go to, and then I stop. And that's pretty close to 1/2 centimetre. So then I'll just roll that one to the top, bring the other one out, and roll the other pieces out. Now once I've got all 4 pieces rolled out, you just want to line them up, and you want to cut them into roughly 9 centimetre lengths, as I found is a pretty good length. So I'll go ahead, block them all off, just to keep them around the same length. Scoodle them up to the top. This last little offcut, you can just mould back in together and roll that out. Now you don't have to be this kind of pedantic with the size, but if you wanted to really be impressive, you could make them all exactly the same size, but I am doing it half-half. Half perfect, half not. And then we'll just dock that one in half, and that one will be a little longer than the rest. But that's just fine. Okay, now once you got them in your lengths, it's like to grab one length, just roll it a little bit extra between the hands, just like that, and then get your skewer. And now I do 4 to 5 wraps around, so I just put the end on, pinch it a little bit, and then wrap it around. Well, that was 4 times, but any 4 or 5 times I found is pretty good. And then I'll pinch the end on this end just a touch. And now with a flat palm, I'm just going to apply some pressure and just roll it back and forth just a little bit so it flattens out. So just, and that's it. And then once you do that, you just slide it off and you carry on with the rest of them. All right, once you got them all rolled, you just want to transfer them to a wire rack. As you can see, all mine are a bit different size, but that's just fine. I'm not being judged on these. Just by, of course, the people on YouTube, whoever's watching. Don't judge too critical. It's my first attempt. Just want to have them all nicely spaced out. And now, once you got them all on the rack, you just want to let these dry. Now the recipe I read says you just leave them out on the bench for about an hour, or if you're in a bit more of a hurry, you could put them in an oven at around 50 or 60 degrees Celsius, and that should only take about 30 to 40 minutes if you do that option. Okay, to make the sauce, you just want to get a pot or a pan over a medium-low heat, add a good amount of olive oil, and then I've just sliced up some shallots. Now don't worry about getting a good fine chop or anything on these shallots. This sauce will be blended at the end. As I said, you just want to get these cooking over a medium-low heat until they're soft and translucent. Now I've probably taken these shallots just a little bit too far and got a bit too much colour on them, but that's going to be fine. So at this point, we're going to add in, I've just got a jar of tomatoes there, some little San Marzanos. It's going to be good. I've also got some basil, stem and all, just chuck it in because we'll be removing that later. And at this point, we'll go in with a couple of pinches of salt. All right, now we'll just go ahead and break these tomatoes up a little bit. As I said, this is going to be blended off a little bit later, so no real big trouble on if you mash them up too much or not at all. So I'm just going to bring that up to a simmer and then let it cook for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. Well, you got your sauce bubbling away there. You just want to get a pan on a medium heat and add half of Nduja. I hope I'm pronouncing it right again. But just go ahead and squeeze it on in there. About half of it will do at this time. Maybe a little bit more. Right, once you've got it in your pan there, you just want to go ahead and get your spoon, wooden spoon or whatever spoon you're using. Just go ahead and break it all up. As I said, you just want to keep this on a medium heat as you're breaking it up and let it cook out a little bit. Alright, once your salami looks a little something like that and it's picked up some colour, you just want to remove it to the heat and set it aside. Alright, the sauce has been bubbling away here for about 10 minutes. Now at this point, you want to get your basil and just get rid of that. It's done its job for now. Now I kind of like the taste of basil, so if you leave a leaf or two behind, I think it's going to be no problem. Just get the stems out. Okay, now you got the basil stems removed. You're going to use a stick blender and you're going to blend this into a smooth puree. Okay, to make it extra smooth and silky, we're going to pass it through a sieve. So you just want to pour it all in there. Leave no sauce behind. Now in the sieve here, all that's left is some tomato seeds. So if you don't mind eating them, you don't have to sieve this, but I'm going full smooth and silky today, so I passed it through a sieve. I read the recipe kind of wrong. Now, you could have just put the sauce straight into this pan, but, you know, I like doing dishes, so I didn't. So we're just going to, at this point, we're going to scoop it all in there. Also, I should mention, I got this pan on a medium heat. We're going to add a little bit of sugar. Now, I'm using brown sugar. You could use white, but I like the taste of brown sugar. In goes that. Going to add a little bit of freshly cracked pepper. Going to add some salt. Also, at this point, we add the rest of the sausage, or the salami, however you want to call it. Now we're just going to mix this all in, and we're just going to let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Okay, I've been gently simmering this away for about 5 minutes now, and I've already tasted it for seasoning, and it's already on point. So now I'm just going to turn down the heat even lower, and just let that sit there on a very low heat while I cook my pasta. I've got a pot of salted water at a rolling boil. Now I'm just going to add all my pasta, and I'm going to cook that till they're just al dente, or even a little bit under, and then we'll transfer them into the sauce. Once your pasta's done, you just want to transfer it straight into the sauce with a slotted spoon. Don't worry if some of the water comes along with it, it's actually a good thing. Go ahead and transfer it all in there. Alright, once you've got the pasta transferred, you just want to mix it all in to the sauce. And once you've got everything nicely coated, you want to serve it immediately. This is the first time I've cooked with this type of salami, and the whole house smells absolutely incredible right now. I'm salivating. and I can't wait to eat it. This sauce adds an incredible spiciness through the dish. The pasta itself is nice and chewy, even though it's freshly made. It's absolutely incredible. This is one dish that I truly will not change anything in the recipe. It's perfect how it is.